The Ukrainian Kursk-Offensive continues with further successes, while at other parts of the front line the Russians keep advancing. We'll talk about this as well as about international aid, additional troop generation, political backgrounds, every detailed change at the front line that I could see, and so much more in this situation report about the war in Ukraine. Before we start, just a quick thank you to those who helped donate, who helped with the donation campaign. We collected over 50,000 euros that will allow the aid agency, or I don't know what to call it, the Berlin Ukraine Aid, to buy two fire trucks, used fire trucks to help in Ukraine to quell fires there. So thank you very much to everyone who participated. Let's start with the situation in the war in Ukraine. Ukraine did an air attack, a drone attack on Lipetsk, the airfield there, and the Ukrainians say they destroyed a glide bomb storage facility, and films shows that serious fires have been recorded there. The airport is used for Sukhoi 34, Sukhoi 35 and MiG-39. No reports about hits there, no reports about anything destroyed. The Ukrainians are also saying in Donetsk they managed to destroy two S-350 and one S-300 radar. They claim they have confirmed one S-350, but the other ones they aren't completely sure yet. I have yet to see any proof of this, so this is just a claim by the Ukrainians at this moment. Let's switch to the interesting part, the northern front. Here we have vastly advanced Ukrainian positions that are being recorded. This here, for instance, in the north, that was this here, we have the, sorry, this was meant to be like this. So we have Ukrainians, this here is Sucha, down here. This is Sucha. According to that, the Ukrainians were spotted up here. We also have them spotted in this direction, which is even further north. Sucha is down here. The issue is, while I have a number of these geolocations, here we have another one in the north of Sucha as well, and we have another one southeast of Sucha. The problem is, this is right now not really an indication where the front line is. We know that Ukrainian troops are operating or have operated several kilometers, 10-15 kilometers in front of the regular forces that were actually solidifying control. So even if we have a geolocation, we just know that Ukrainians have been there. It might very well be that at this moment the Russians control the town again. This is a sign of the current Ukrainian offensive, that at least initially they were able to penetrate the Russian lines and close to operating at will behind the Russian lines. And this is a reason for the geolocation that at times might also be a couple of days old. So while this shows us Ukrainian advances fairly deep, it doesn't conclude that this is actual control. So we use two maps here. This is the pro-Ukrainian Petrenko, a Ukrainian mill blogger, showing us that this is his estimate control and with the according gray zone. And here we have the pro-Russian Riba, seeing that if you see they more or less assign the same area to the Ukrainians. Here was the one strike at the south. We see that they even show Ukrainians have been up here, and they say all of this is gray area. I think this is vastly exaggerated in my mind. Again, we are talking about pro-Russians here, but you see that both of them aren't that far apart. So in total, the whole operation isn't that much bigger than we see it here on the map. It's probably, and this is a bad drawing now, but it's probably somewhere, no, this is already too big. It's probably somewhere like this here, down here. This is the current Ukrainian control over the area. We do not see them having advanced too far further than this. Currently also we can see that the troop numbers are still not as massive as we would expect in case of a massive Ukrainian operation. It seems right now, it seems unlikely that this is meant to shortening the front line, be it for instance down here, or be it whatever in southern areas, even just this here could also be a solidification. We don't know. But as of now, we do not see that the Ukrainians pump more and more troops in the area, while there have been at least 4 brigades already confirmed to participate. And while we had the Kraken unit also participate, so far it's only parts of those brigades that are operating. So a straightening of the front line seems unlikely. It's definitely bigger than a raid to just go in. So as of now, it's unclear. It does not seem that the Ukrainians want to take vast territories, solidify control, dig in there. It does not seem like they want to take the nuclear power plant, as was argued around, that they might want to exchange it then for the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. We do not see we cannot say as of now what they exactly want, and it doesn't make too much sense to speculate too far in the depth. We do see though that they manage to strike Russians when they keep advancing, when the Russian reinforcements that are closing in on the front line are regularly being attacked, be it with HIMARS, be it with artillery, be it with drones, and they are suffering serious losses. We're talking about hundreds of casualties in columns, and several columns have already been hit. The Russians also report that the Ukrainians have started using drones in frequency ranges that have not been used before, so they can't jam it. So it shows that the Ukrainians held back some of their technology, some of their capabilities for that operation, and are now unveiling it. So we see that, at least, even if we don't see huge troop numbers, even if we don't see huge swaths of territory being taken, this is an operation that was taken fairly or very serious by the Ukrainian government, by the Ukrainian military leadership. The Ukrainians apparently have also entered Belgorod. There is a geolocation here of them, at least if it shows it to us. There is a geolocation of Ukrainians in a town that was here in Belgorod. Now, just to have an overview, we're talking about Sucha up here, and the Ukrainians have crossed the border here as well. But the Russians say they took Lukashivka and Solnitsky Kozachok, and those two towns are, so we just had the Ukrainians up here. Here are the Ukrainians, and this is a town that the Russians right now are claiming they took it, and they took this town according to their claims too. Now, the Ukrainians have evacuated a border area, so here we cannot expect serious Ukrainian forces, probably close to none. There are no civilians here, which makes it easy for the Russians to cross over and raise a flag. And this should be understood probably as some kind of moral boost, that they want to prove, hey, we can cross the border as well, that they can generate great press. That these are serious operations is unlikely at this very moment. The same seems to be here, that the Ukrainians would open up another front here seems at least unlikely, and it seems to be small troops that have entered here, but we'll have to keep an eye on it in the future. In the area north of Kharkiv, there are several Ukrainian counterattacks being reported at Lyboke. I cannot confirm, I cannot see any success that they had. Fighting is also reported from Vovchansk, but I cannot see any change in territory there either. Let's go to the Eastern Front. Here we do have some changes. The Russians gained additional ground at Pivchane, somewhere in this region here. They managed to extend their control, and they managed to extend their control roughly in this area here as well. This is a rough drawing. I think we can show the map here. Yeah. So you see they managed to straighten out the front line in recent advances, at least according to the Ukrainians. I have not seen geolocations from this, so in this regard I'm taking the Ukrainian admittance of defeat as a proof enough. A Ukrainian mill blogger is also saying that a HIMARS attack on the headquarters of the 2nd Battalion of the 51st VDV Regiment, the air assault groups, killed its commander and several other officers. No proof whatsoever of this actually haven't happened, so I cannot confirm it as of now. South of the Seversky Donetsk, we have the Russian attacks being reported at various parts. I cannot confirm any change in territory or any successful Russian attacks. The first one we have further down of southwest of Bakhmut here at Drushba, and here the Russians have reached up to here, to this point, where we have a geolocation as well. we see the Russians having reached to this point here, so the control is probably solidifying somewhere in this area recently where they managed to advance further. In the west at New York, we have a Ukrainian counterattack that was successful. No, that was at least partially successful. We have the Ukrainians attacking in this direction. This is here to this area. So this doesn't mean that this is back under Ukrainian control. We see the map here. It says it's gray. Basically, it's contested area. No side has permanent positions. But we see that the Ukrainians did counterattacks there, including with a Bradley. The Russians were successful, though, in the west of New York. They solidified control roughly in this area here and increased their control of the area west of New York or southwest of New York. They also managed to advance in the direction of Rodivka from Vesele. Roughly this area here is freshly under their control. They also managed to advance close to Serhivka. Here we have another advance in this direction. The Russians also managed to push forward in this direction. I apologize. South of it, we have a Russian advance between Vozdvizhenka and Lozovatske that has been reported. And this is, let me check here. I have a geolocation of it. No, this was not it. This is here. Lozovatske and Vozdvizhenka, and this was not further south, I remember, but it's here. This is the Russians having entered this tree line here and probably solidifying their control along this line here now. Further south, they had a success at Nevelske, minor, but they managed to advance up to here inside of the town. We have a geolocation of this as well. Here we see them in the northwest of those houses, whereas before we knew that they controlled the southeastern part of it. Further south at Marinka, we have, or in the Marinka area, we have Russian advances in Konstantinivka. Here, over the last few days, the Russians managed to solidify their position inside of Konstantinivka. Initially, we had them here and here. Now we have them here, up here, and here. So roughly this area here is now, as we can see here, the map shows it. This is an area now where the Russians are operating. I cannot confirm as of now that they have taken full control of the positions, even though it seems likely, as they should have managed to push the Ukrainians far enough away to take control at least over the tree lines here and over the southeasternmost houses. Further west, no change until we reach the oblast border, and here we have the Russians advancing a little along the tree line to the northern part. In the past, I think I had a geolocation a little bit further south here, so they might have already had taken it before, but now we have a geolocation in the north of this tree line as well. Then on the Dnipro front, we have a development on the Kinburn Spit. Here, the Ukrainians landed here, did a sabotage action and published a video. We have a geolocation on it itself, and the Ukrainians also operated on the Black Sea and destroyed or attacked and probably destroyed a gas platform in the Black Sea that was used militarily by the Ukrainians. I apologize, I saw the Ukrainian flag that was used militarily by the Russians. The exact position is unknown. We have here the estimated position, I had it somewhere, is somewhere in this direction down here. The Russians held control over a couple of gas platforms in these regions. The Ukrainians reconquered the northern parts, but here in the south, there are still some left, and it was probably one of them. They are used for radar, to install radar dishes, things like this. And here we had the Ukrainians strike one of them. Overall, we have to say, when we talk about the overall situation, the majority of the forces that the Russians bring into Kursk to fight the Ukrainians do not come from combat areas. It's mostly Rosgvardia, it's conscript units that are being used here to fight the Ukrainians as well. It's FSB border troops, it's special forces, it's former Wagner units, it's the Ahmad units, the Kadyrovtsi. so the Chechens. But there's also being reported that some units from the Northern Army Group are being sent here. Those are the ones fighting in Kharkiv. So far, from what I've seen, it seems to only be units that have so far been behind the front line. So no direct weakening of the assault units of the Russians has been achieved with this operation yet, but this might happen in the future, and obviously reserves that are being redeployed and that are being destroyed and attrited at another place cannot reinforce Russian attacks after the units in the front line right now are weakened. So it will still have an effect if there are units from other regions being sent there, but as of now at least we do not see, and as you could see in the Russian advances, we do not see that the Russians are being slowed down in other parts of the front line because of this operation. According to Mashowetz, Konstantin Mashowetz, a colonel of or former colonel of the Ukrainian armed forces, the Russians have roughly 70 to 75,000 men in this area, so there is something that they can send, but right now we do not see a significant weakening of the Russian forces at another point. We have bad news about the prisoners of war. Here we have Euromaidan Press. This is like a pro-Ukrainian propaganda channel, but they are saying 95% of the Ukrainian prisoners were tortured in Ukraine. And we have here the video to confirm it, because I wanted to make sure that this is actually true.
The torture is widespread, regular. It happens in these facilities. It's happened to more than 95% of the Ukrainian POWs, without question.
This was Daniel Bell, head of the Human Rights Monitoring Mission to Ukraine, which says that a UN mission says that 95% of the prisoners of war that Russia took were tortured. This is obviously a war crime. There's no need to put this into more context. The Ukrainians are also accusing the Russians to use more chemical weapons. They are usually using riot control agents from hand grenades that are being airdropped from drones, but even riot control agents are banned by the Chemical Weapons Convention, which Russia has signed, so another war crime committed by the Russians. Troop generation, we have law in Russia. It was signed now that electronic gadgets are no longer allowed while in the office, while working in the front line. In the office is a confusion from my part. So soldiers along the front line are no longer allowed to use electronic gadgets. If they use it, if they get caught, they can be sent to 10 days into imprisonment, but only if those gadgets are not used in an official means. Initially, they want to ban it completely, so cell phone usage, for instance, would be banned. There was protest by the Russian mill blogger community to stop this, and this was successful and changed now, so it would be up for discretion by the officers whether those gadgets were used for a legitimate purpose or not. Russia also wants to send the confiscated firearms that they have confiscated probably from prisoners, from criminals. They want to hand them over to governmental institutions like the military, Rosgvardia and others. In total, supposedly 70,000 weapons that would be handed over. This should not be misinterpreted that the Russians run out of rifles as of now. It's probably just could be probably more understood as a more efficient usage of resources that are already there. Not all of it will be for frontline use. Not all of it will be usable. A double-barrel shotgun might not be handed out to any forces at all. But here we see that the Russians try to make their recruitment, their troop generation, their equipment resourcing more efficient and tapping into ponds, into pools where they can reinforce their units with new weapons without stressing the current system. Then there is a report that the Russian soldiers are currently in Iran to be trained on the Fatah 360 SRBM. Those are short-range ballistic missiles. The expectation is hundreds of those could be given to Russia, hundreds of those. They have a range of 120 kilometers and a warhead of 150 kilometers. And thanks to satellite navigation, the CEP, the circular error point, is at 30 meters. So half of the missiles fired will will hit within 30 meters, and Russia might receive hundreds of them. It's probably in connection to the past reports about Russian deliveries of air defense systems, electronic warfare systems to Iran. I guess it was a trade between the two, that that Russia gives them air defense systems, radar systems, electronic warfare systems to fight the Israelis in case they attack, and they themselves receive weapons that Iran could not use against the Israelis at the same time. We have troop generation in Ukrainian side as well. An interesting video here about a RoboDo that is being used. I found it kind of funny that it has blue tape around its legs as well as the human. Obviously makes sense, so the soldiers along the front line know it's one of us, but we see more and more of those items being used along the front line by both sides here. And we have a video of the Ukrainians doing drone training, FPV training. Supposedly it's also a competition. There you can see, with the importance of FPV drones nowadays, it obviously makes sense to not just train them to fly, but to master those, and you can see how that is happening here. And the music played, unfortunately, so I might be demonetized here. Well, I'll see if it happens. Then political sphere, we have news that Moscow Calling mill blogger was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison because of fake news about the military. He was a very critical one that I quoted a couple of times in the past 2 years. He was very critical, used cynicism to criticize the Russian military and so on and so forth, and that obviously led him to be sentenced to prison. Now, this will obviously have an effect on the other mill bloggers too, to force them, to discipline them in a certain way. And we have the US sending an additional aid package for $125 million, HIMARS ammunition, 155, 105 ammunition for the artillery, Stinger air defense, Stinger manpads, Javelins, 84 TOW anti-tank weapons, anti-tank guided missiles, and shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons, radar systems, Humvees, and ammunition. So in total, another aid package that is being sent. And at this point, I want to thank the donors of Fresh Books to me. Thank you for providing honest, unbiased reporting for the Ukraine-Russia war. I wish you luck with your library. I also like the thumbnails you put on your videos. Thanks from Sam Garcia for the book Super Battleships of World War II. Should probably make it bigger. Super Battleships of World War II. Thank you so much, Sam Garcia. And I want to thank Eddie C. Lee for The Last of Africa's Cold War Conflicts. I want to thank Eddie C. Lee for Concrete Hell, Urban Warfare from Stalingrad to Iraq. This should be really interesting. Thank you so much, Eddie C. Lee. Donated even more. Nazis on the Potomac, the top secret intelligence operation that helped win World War II. Thank you for that book as well. And thank you, Eddie C. Lee, for the Angolan War of Liberation, Colonial Communist Clash, 1961 to 1974. Thank you for that book as well. Thank you so much for those donations. If you want to help me rebuild my library as well, then you find the link to my Amazon wishlist in the description. But that's it for me for now. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment. What do you think about the current developments, and what do you think the Ukrainians actually aim to do in Kursk? And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. But that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.